Thank you for your patience. This is our Broadway on a Budget seminar. My name is Travis Milliman. I'm the Performing Arts Librarian here at Greenwich. And this is a program I do throughout the year where I just try and give you some tips and tricks to make the most out of our proximity to New York and also show you some resources we have at the library that can augment that experience. So, the uh, gist of today's talk, we're going to start by talking about accounts that you can make. So that includes TodayTix and TDF, which are the two primary ones. Um, we're going to talk about the Rush experience and how Rush is changing. That will also tie into TodayTix. We're going to talk about young theater goer programs. So a lot of the big subscription houses have programs for people mostly under the age of 40. It can get discounted tickets. We're going to talk about off-Broadway. This year's a really big year for off-Broadway. It's kind of been going in that trend where a lot of these celebrities and a lot of the big name playwrights are preferring off-Broadway to Broadway, and we're seeing it in a massive way this year. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Broadway at home, so things you have here at the library and also things that we have locally that are sometimes just as good, if not better, as Broadway. And then if anyone has someone in their house or if someone themselves is maybe visiting for the holidays, a couple fun things you can do in the area or in New York. So like I said, we're going to start with accounts, and the two primary things we'll be discussing are TodayTix as well as TDF. So TodayTix, this is their mission statement. TodayTix works with thousands of venues to provide the best price tickets available in the biggest cities around the world, including New York City, London's West End, Toronto, San Fran, LA, Seattle, DC, the list goes on as you can see. And what I really like about TodayTix is if you are a traveler, if you take summer road trips, if you have family on the West Coast, if you go to the UK, TodayTix is in all of those places. Australia, as you can see, is listed there. Pretty much the English-speaking world, and I think it might be in Madrid now, is covered by TodayTix. So this is a really great resource for getting discounted tickets for theater and also sometimes non-theater things. Like sometimes museums are on here, sometimes like special events are on here. Um, so let's move into TodayTix and take a look at it. So if you were approaching it through the website, we're going to spend less time here because it is primarily an app. But if you were to log into the website, you would see a page like this. And they kind of show you a bunch of things about what they have, and they try to highlight mostly newer things, but also like they're really great deals. So if you look at the screen here on the bottom left, you'll see Anne Juliet, which is a giant hit on Broadway and has been for many years now. They have tickets where you can save up to 68%. Or Michael Jackson over here. This is a huge big box office hit, 25% on that. And with these, what you're going to want to look at is so when it says 68% or 30% or 25%, that does not mean that every show has that deal. So you're going to want to be careful as you're looking and selecting your tickets that you're picking a date that has that deal, and I will show you that in a few slides how you can monitor that. But these kind of just red labels are really great. Something TodayTix has added in the last couple of years is something called Show Score, which you can see below here with the green ticket. And what this is if you buy tickets through TodayTix, then they let you rate the show and give it a show score so you can find out what the general public thinks of it. Because sometimes, especially I would say recently, there's a discrepancy between what the theater critics are saying and what the public thinks of it. A great example of this is the musical The Outsiders that won Best Musical a few years ago. And pretty much across the board, the critics gave it a middle of the road review. But the audiences really loved it, and Tony voters really loved it. So it's one of the most popular shows in New York. But now switching over to the app, like I said, TodayTix is primarily an app. And this is by far the best way to engage with it. It really is designed to be used as an app on your phone or tablet. And TodayTix has full functionality this way. On the website, there are certain functions like Rush, which we will talk about, that you cannot use on the website. So if you wanted to download TodayTix, it's pretty simple. So you'll just search in your App Store, Play Store, whatever, and you'll look for this red square Tix logo. This has not changed pretty much since TodayTix inception. This logo is going to be the same. Like this picture might not be here. This is from a few years ago, but that red square is what you're going to be looking for. And then to make this account, it's very easy. Some resources nowadays want you to give your name, your number, your email, your blood type, your dog's birthday, what bus you rode to school in the third grade. They want you to give you all this information. These guys do not care about that. They really just want your name and email. And if you have an Apple account or a Gmail account, signing up takes seconds. And once you've signed up, it'll take you to something like this on the left, and then you can click on your home tab. And from then on out, whenever you open it, it'll look something like this on the right. So it always highlights, like I said, either newer shows or really good deals. So here's Anne Juliet again with a really good deal. Marjorie Prime, which we'll talk about more in a bit, is one of my it hasn't, I think it might actually start performances this week. Um, but it is one of my most anticipated shows of the fall for sure. Um, so from here, as you try to browse and you search, so let's say, I'm sorry, we're gonna go back. Let's say where this Anne Juliet was, you had clicked on six, because we're gonna look at six here as an example. Six, if you have not seen it yet, it is a giant crowd favorite. It's the story of the wives of I always mess the number up, Henry the Eighth, who killed many of his wives, or some of them died in childbirth, or divorced some, and it's all very messy. And it's been reimagined as this like pop supergroup. And actually, a lot of the creative team behind the Spice Girls are working on this. The costumer who won the Tony Award for costumes also was the costume designer for the last Spice Girls tour, which is kind of cool. Um, if when you click on a show like Six, for example, you're going to get a map in most cases, you're going to get a map of the theater like you see here on the left. And what you're going to want to do is zoom in. And when you zoom in, if you look over to the right, you're going to see all these little price tags, or what they are. They might look like locks to some people. I've heard people say that they look like milk cartons, but they're little price tags. And the price tags indicate that there is a very good deal. For six, I clicked on, in the big picture, these are the very first row all the way to the left on the mezzanine. Um, and for me, for a musical, the front row mezzanine are always the best seats. The sound is always the best. You still feel close. It's just, to me, it's the best experience you can have in really any Broadway show, but especially a musical. And so these tickets are normally $156. And through TodayTix, they're marked down to $99 each. And that's including fees. So that's pretty great. And what you'll want to notice is that this show is on a Thursday, December 4th. In my experience, and one of the great things about living where we live is that it's these weekday evening shows that have the best deals. Thursday night, I kind of make my personal theater night because that is when, to me, you have the most options. Um, and it's usually so when you see a Broadway show, especially on a Tuesday or Wednesday, frequently there might be an understudy or a swing in for one of the stars, which is not a bad thing at all. But if there is an actor you really want to see, to me, Thursday night is the night when actors are out the least. So I target that. And you can see here that by picking a weeknight, you're going to get this crazy deal on front row mezzanine seats. And I have never been great with math. That is what? $55 off. So that's pretty spectacular. And if you'd clicked back here, $67 are these blue price tag seats. And in a theater like this is in the Lena Horne, formerly the Brooks Atkinson, where Waitress played for a long time. And this is the smallest theater on Broadway, the second smallest, apologies, the second smallest theater on Broadway. And any seat in this house, you're gonna feel like you're very close. So any kind of deal in here is really it's good value for your dollar. Something else you can do with TodayTix, like I was mentioning earlier, is Rush. And so we're going to talk momentarily about kind of the old school Rush process, but more and more so, Rush is switching to a digital model so they don't have people lined up outside the theater at 6, 7, even 5 a.m. on like a cold December morning. We're actually going to go back a slide here. So if you look on the right here, this is the TodayTix homepage, remember. You're going to see up here under the NYC location, there's an option for lottery and rush. So when you click that lottery and rush, you're going to get a list of shows that give you the option of rush tickets. And what that means is you can go in, and so this is one of my picks that I'll talk more about later, but Initiative, which is a very buzzy off-Broadway show with Greenwich connections, actually. And so when you click on the show, what you're going to want to do is ahead of the day you want to try and rush, click Unlock Now, which will prompt this screen on the right. And you can either share it on one of your social media things or click Unlock without sharing. And that will get you access to $43 tickets or $42 tickets. Sometimes it's $30 tickets um, for top tier shows usually. Um, and the rush tickets, the way it works is after you've unlocked it, like I said, you want to do it usually before the day of, is at 9 a.m. You're going to want to, probably a little before 9 a.m., you're going to want to log on the day of the show you're trying to go to. And essentially, it's luck. You're going to click where this unlock now is, uh, where the, sorry, where this unlock now button is, there will be an option to get tickets, and you will click either one or two tickets, which is how many you can get for Rush. Um, and then they'll tell you if they can fulfill your order or not. My advice for Rush tickets, it's easier off Broadway versus on Broadway, which you can filter by in the TodayTix app. But also, if you don't get it right away, maybe try again in a minute or two. Sometimes there's a crazy rush at 9 o'clock, and if you go back at 9:02, 9:03, 9:04, 9:05, they're available. Not long after that, they will be gone, but frequently I've been locked out of a show right at 9. I go back at 9:05 and it's there. So that's a really that this is, in my opinion, the least stressful and best way to get cheap tickets for high quality theater. And I've used a off-Broadway example here, like I was saying, with Initiative, which is playing at the Public right now. But and Juliet, which I've mentioned, is there. Waiting for Godot with Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter is there. I think Book of Mormon has Rush now. Usually the shows at the Samuel Friedman, which is part of Manhattan Theater Club, those have Rush. Second stage shows frequently have Rush. Roundabout shows frequently have Rush, like Penzance, if anyone saw that back in the spring, that had Rush. So it's a really good way to see really good theater at, in my opinion, a pretty affordable rate. And they're usually good seats. So the Rush tickets they're frequently on the side, but they are close. So you're going to be able to see usually pretty much everything. Sometimes off Broadway, they're a little bit further back. So that's it for today, Tix, for now. Like I said, please try and hold questions till the end and I'll address them. But now we're going to talk about TDF. TDF stands for the Theater Development Fund. It has $42 annual dues, and while annual dues are kind of a drag, the deals you get through TDF, if you buy really one, but 2 to 3 to be safe tickets a year through TDF, you pay for your dues. They put you in the best seats for 50, $60 when those tickets normally are going to cost $150 to $200 minimum. It was founded in 1968, and TDF's mission is to sustain live theater and dance by engaging and cultivating a broad and diverse audience and eliminating barriers to attendance. And a large variety of people qualify for TDF's mission. So TDF is not for everyone. There's a bunch of different categories that you have to fit in for TDF. but I would say the majority of people do qualify. So let's look at who does. Um, so students, teachers and school staff, people under 30, union members, those on federal disability, retirees, government employees or civil servants, not-for-profit staffers, full-time hourly workers. What this means is basically if you qualify for overtime, you qualify. Artists or arts professionals, members of the armed forces, veterans, freelancers or self-employed people, or members of the clergy. And for most of these, what they're going to want to see is some kind of dated ID that says, like, I am a student at SUNY Purchase and I am still a student this year, that kind of thing. Or a letter from HR. So if you're a not-for-profit staffer or a government employee, they just want to see a letter from HR, an official letterhead saying, like, yes, this person actually is what they're claiming that they are. Um, and there's a page on the TDF site where you could look up all this information because it is a little bit different. I know for retirees, for example, they'll also just take like a pay stub or basically from your government benefits. Freelancers, I'm not quite sure on how you prove that, but it is all an honor system. So I will say it's kind of if you're nervous about whether you qualify or not, I would submit and you're probably going to be fine. Also, the cool thing about TDF is if you have a friend or a family member who qualifies for this, even if you don't, they can take you to shows. So one of my favorite things about TDF is that for most of the time, you can get quite a large quantity of tickets at a good rate. Like it's much better than buying the group rate from a Broadway show. Sometimes it's up to 9 tickets per order, which is pretty great. So let's look at TDF. I was saying a moment ago about there's the page where you can um, check for what qualifications, what qualifies for proving your qualification. There we go. That was a mouthful. And if you click on this discount ticket programs here, you'll find that page there. But similarly to TodayTix, this is a pretty easy account to make. So you're just going to click on create an account once you're on this page. And just like TodayTix, they don't want a ton of information. They do want your address, which is a little bit more than TodayTix, but I've never been spammed or anything by that, and I've been a TDF holder member for years. Um, so like I said, quick, easy, email, password, name, address, nothing major. And then you get access to some pretty spectacular stuff. And TDF has a wide variety of offerings. So I took this, I guess last week, and you can see there's Broadway, but there's also off-Broadway dance, concerts. There's a lot. There's even stuff from Jersey. If you have family or you're in North Jersey a lot, you do see stuff from there. Um, and when you click on the Broadway tab, especially, it's not just Broadway theater. So you can see right here at the top is the Rockettes. I will emphasize that this is a great deal because these tickets are only, I believe, $60, but they are not for, if you want to see the Rockettes on like December 22nd, that's not here. A lot of what's here is November. There is some December availability, and a lot of it is also kind of the funky time. So the Rockettes perform once you get into kind of peak season. I believe it's 4 times a day. I think it's 10 a.m., like a 2 p.m. matinee, a 7 or 8 p.m. show, and then a 10 p.m. show some days. And so you're going to see a lot of the 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., but there are still a fair amount of especially the matinees at like 2 p.m. available here. So definitely if that is part of your Christmas tradition to go see the Rockettes, this is a great way to save money on that. You'll also see the Metropolitan Opera on here a lot. If I could have scrolled down in the screenshot, you would have seen a bunch of their shows. You'll see Dance at City Center is on here a lot. American Ballet Theater is on here sometimes, probably the least of kind of the major organizations that use this. Um, you don't see the Nutcracker on here basically ever, unfortunately. I'm sure it is every now and then, but that's not an option if you were hoping to get Nutcracker tickets through this. You do see the Nutcracker sometimes on TodayTix, so keep an eye out there for that. But that sells itself basically, so they don't put a lot of effort into these kind of secondary discount sites. But looking at the Broadway shows that are here, you'll see Hadestown here a lot now, especially on weekdays. Hadestown has become one of the staples of the New York theater scene. It's quickly becoming one of the longest running shows in Broadway history. I feel like almost every other month it's climbing up that list. Um, it is an amazing story based on the Orpheus and Eurydice myth, told through New Orleans jazz mostly. Liberation down here, I'll talk about this more later, but it's an amazing play that was a Pulitzer finalist last year. And that is about a woman kind of connecting to her family through the women's lib movement and their history attached to that. And Juliet is here again. Death Becomes Her and Great Gatsby, which are both like huge spectaculars, are here. And if you scroll down, there would be more. The Stranger Things play is on here a lot. If anyone's a Stranger Things fan, that show is pretty next level as far as the special effects and technology go. So that's a really great value. When I got my Stranger Things tickets through TDF, I was second row dead center. And you get the full immersive experience, and it's like you're on an amusement park ride. It's pretty special, in my opinion. All right, so let's keep moving. So I took this screenshot of Moulin Rouge, which is another thing you see on here a lot, especially on weekdays. You see these Wednesday performances, especially. Um, Winner of the Tony for Best Musical in that kind of funky, like post-COVID 2020 one or two, I forget which Tony ceremony. $60, which is pretty great because if you were to go to the box office or even the TKTS booth in New York, you're paying at least $20 more than that, if not double that price. Um, and Moulin Rouge, if you haven't seen it, is an especially good one to kind of take tourists or family from out of town to. I wouldn't take like small children per se, because it is Moulin Rouge. It does take place in a burlesque house. But it is a humongous spectacular, and they have transformed the entire Al Hirschfeld Theater into this amazing space to the point that if you go up to the wallpaper that they've put on the wall, it says like MR or something like that from Moulin Rouge. It's pretty wonderful. And you also see stars in and out of this all the time. So Wayne Brady, I think, just finished a run. Boy George has been in it a couple times. It's pretty, people like doing a limited run in this. And as I was saying at the top, I really want to emphasize how great Off-Broadway is this season and why it's a wonderful place to look for shows. I will say in the screenshot here of the top of the alphabet, there's not a lot here I would promote. Art of Leaving is maybe the one thing I would look at the Signature Center. Um, but if you scroll down, there's a lot. And what's on here a lot is stuff at the Public Theater, such as this, The Seat of Our Pants. And the Public Theater is one of the premier off-Broadway houses. It is the birthplace of Hamilton, the birthplace of Fun Home, the birthplace of Chorus Line, all these great, great musicals and kind of icons of the American theater have come out of the public. So Seat of Our Pants is a musical based on Thornton Wilder's The Skin of Our Teeth. And it is if you're a theater person, it is star-studded, and if you're not, you'll still be blown away by the talent. I believe there are three Tony winners and five Tony nominees in the cast. Um, and it features really great kind of bluegrass Americana music, as well as some more traditional musical theater songs. I was pretty astonished by it. I'm a huge fan of this play, I will say, that it's based off of, but I really like this musical, and it's done in a way. It's not the round, but there's audience on both sides of the stage, so it feels very intimate, no matter where you're sitting in the house. And $42 for this is a steal. Um, I cannot emphasize enough what a good deal that is. The Public Theater, if you live in New York, has tons of deals, but otherwise, your really only way to get a ticket for below, I don't know, let's say like 60 or $70, is through TDF or through the TodayTix Rush. Speaking of Rush, lovely segue there. Let's talk about this. I'm going to move through this slightly quicker than I have in the past because while this still exists, every time I do this presentation, more and more shows are going exclusively to digital. So if you've never done Rush before, or if you don't know what Rush is, Rush tickets are tickets remaining on the day of the show. They usually range in price from $30 to $50. And historically, this has required going to the box office in person the morning of the show. But like I said, now there's lots of digital options. And I think the reason for the big increase in digital options is before, like let's say you're here in Greenwich or the surrounding area, you had to wake up early, take the Metro North or drive into the city, go wait outside of this of a theater for a chance at maybe getting one of these deals. Now, by switching it to more digital, it is a better customer service experience. So you know right at 9 p.m. whether or not you have to, or sorry, you know right at 9 a.m. Whether you got these tickets or not. Um, so I took this screenshot from the website for Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. It's a new musical that's transferred over from the West End. And I will say, not all, but the vast majority of Broadway musicals or Broadway plays have a section like this on their website. So if you look here, you have to scroll down on the website a little bit to find this, but you'll see that they have all the details and information for their lottery and for their rush process. So here it says in-person rush tickets will be available on the day of each performance at 10 a.m. Rush tickets are priced at $42 with a limit of 2 tickets per person. And once again, these are usually quite good seats. So I will say in all the times I've done physical, like in-person rush, I don't think I've ever been further back than maybe like 5 or 6 rows. And last time I did physical rush was for our town last winter, and I was on stage because there was on stage seating for that. So it's definitely, I would say it's if you don't mind the gamble, it's worth it. I feel like you get guaranteed the best seats by doing this. But it is a gamble, as I said, because you might take the trip in and then not get tickets. Um, I'm not going to really talk that much about the lottery. I personally have had such bad experience with the lottery, and not because it's like messed me up or anything. I just never win it. So I can't speak to the quality of the tickets. I can't speak to the process that much at all. Um, I'm gonna, for the purposes of this, skip to leave more time for questions at the end, and there's more to cover still. Um, so these next 2 slides, I always say this, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, this is what I would take away. So what you're going to want to do is usually that Tuesday afternoon, you're going to want to go to Google and you're going to want to search Broadway grosses. And this is a weekly report that comes out from the Broadway League, and it lists how ticket sales were for the last week on Broadway. And there's usually 3 or 4 different sites right at the top. Playbill, the Broadway League's own website, Broadway World, and I feel like there's one more I'm forgetting that usually have this pretty, like as soon as they can, they have it up Tuesday afternoon. Um, there's a lot of things you can play with here. You can sort by gross, you can sort by average ticket cost, but what I always recommend is sorting by capacity. And by sorting by capacity, you can see what's doing really well and what's maybe doing less well. So here, this row right here with the red circle around it, this screen is at the top of the gross list. So you'll see it's broken up into 2 pictures here. And so these shows like Just in Time, which sold at 103%, that's due to standing room tickets. Hamilton is always up here. Hadestown is usually up here. I'm actually surprised to notice that Lion King and Aladdin are both not up here. They're usually up here. Um, so these are the shows that are selling especially well. Um, and then on this page, let's get that red circle back up. This is the lower half of the Broadway grosses. And what I will say is just because a show is not selling well does not reflect necessarily on the quality of the show at all. Um, a great example of this is the bottom show here that's selling at 54% is Liberation, which is a spectacular show that had an incredible off-Broadway run. And I think its big problem is twofold. One, there's no celebrity in the show, and for Broadway purposes, not having a celebrity in the show or being tied to a major playwright or musician is tough. And Bess Wohl, who is the playwright, is she is a rising star, but she is not a megastar yet. And also the fact that it's at the James Earl Jones Theater. This is kind of more niche theater nerd information, but theaters on the east side of Broadway traditionally don't do as well. Um, there's a lot of different speculation as to why. It might be that they're more isolated. It might be that if you're coming from Penn Station, you don't see them. There's a bunch of different theories, but that is just a historically accurate fact that the theaters on the east side of Broadway don't do as well. But I show you this because if you look at this capacity column and a show is selling definitely below 80%, but really below 85%, I would say it is safe to do an in-person rush. Um, so if you look here, like I said, Liberation is you could 1,000% do an in-person rush and get probably a very good, very inexpensive ticket for 40 bucks. Chicago is here. I will put an asterisk at Chicago because it is Chicago and because it has run for so long, because basically all they're doing is making money at this point. Um, their whole like fiscal year, if you will, is built around the holidays and the peak of summer vacation. So you might have luck rushing it. Like if you went in January, you'd probably be fine. But this time of year, it's a little bit tricky because this number within a week or two will double, triple, if not beat 100%. Um, so definitely keep an eye on that if Chicago is of interest to you. Six, like I said, is here. I do not like forecasting shows closing, but Six is in a very coveted theater, and I would not be surprised if they decide to move off Broadway or close in the next within the next 12 months, I'll say. So if you've been waiting on that, I would try and see that. Little Bear Ridge Road, there we go, is selling right at that 85% line. So I would say it's a bit of a risk, especially because it's a small theater. But if you haven't checked out the New York Times review for that, it is one of the better New York Times reviews I have seen in a very long time. Little Bear Ridge Road is by Samuel Hunter, who wrote The Whale, which was turned into a film starring Brendan Fraser that he won the Oscar for. But Little Bear Ridge Road is stars Laurie Metcalf of like Roseanne, The Conners, Sheldon's mom, I guess. And the play and the part were written for her. And she is giving this tour de force epic performance in it. And I will say it is not a happy play. If you want like a comedic escapist night, it's not the show for you. It's kind of about um, rebuilding connection towards the end of COVID. But it is a like incredibly strong, dynamic, powerful piece. And Laurie Metcalf is a tiger on that stage, and I highly, highly recommend it. So like I said, capacity, or sorry, the grosses, you're going to want to remember to Google the Broadway grosses, and then you're going to want to look at the capacity, and anything selling below 80, but definitely below 85, I think you could rush it and you would be just fine and get a fantastic theater experience for 40-ish dollars. The next part here, this is memberships and young theater goer programs. This is an initiative that many theaters have both on and off Broadway to try and build a core audience out of younger people as Broadway becomes more and more expensive. And what's really cool is a lot of these, well, it's cool, and then you think about why they're doing it, and it's not so cool. But a lot of these used to have caps at 30, and a lot of them now go up to 40. So Hip Tix definitely will go up to 40. We'll talk about that in a minute. I believe Link Tix either just did or is about to go up to 40. Um, and it's happening because the price of living is getting so expensive and everything is becoming so expensive, and they're trying to stretch this as far as they can to build this audience. But it's also just a great thing that they see that and are allowing it to grow to allow people a chance to see great art. So in general, theaters have changed the way they look at memberships. Big companies, Lincoln Center, Second Stage Manhattan Theater Club, and Roundabout still have traditional memberships, as do most off-Broadway houses. And there's new programs to encourage young goers, like I was saying. I do want to shout out Second Stage. Second Stage is the one company that is held hard at it is 30. If you are not younger than 30, you're not getting a discount unless you're a student. But Second Stage's regular membership, I think, is almost worth it. You're gonna their Broadway house is the Helen Hayes, which is the smallest, and so you're gonna get like I believe it breaks down to an $80 ticket or a $70 ticket to see usually a really big star in a really good play in a really small theater. So that is of all of the kind of the traditional memberships, that's the one that I kind of encourage the most. To start these young theater ticket goer programs, we're going to talk about LinkTix. So this screenshot's a few years old. It's from, so it talks about signing up, which is this form on the right. And it's for people who are 21 to 35 years old. And for that, you get, I believe it's a $34 ticket to shows at their Broadway space, the Beaumont, and their smaller off-Broadway spaces. The thing with LinkTix is because the Lincoln Center shows get usually pretty big stars in them, they sell out pretty immediately. So you're going to have to watch your emails and see when LinkTix go on sale. For those who are not in their 20s or 30s, the cool thing about LinkTix is if you do have, whether it's a son or daughter or a niece or nephew or whatever, they can sign up for LinkTix and take you to the theater with them. So, and one of the anecdotes I gave is taking a very good friend to see, or a very good mentor, I should say, to go see My Fair Lady when it was running on Broadway close to 10 years ago now, I guess. And that was, we were able to do that for relatively cheap because I could get these tickets as a young theater goer. Or you could take your mom for her birthday to go see a show for a relatively cheap price. So going ahead to look at HipTix, like I said, this has stretched to 40. This used to be 35. And this is for shows at Roundabout, which owns the American Airlines Theater in Studio 54, as well as the Pels Theater. I will note that not all the shows in those theaters are roundabout shows. An example of this is Oedipus, which is playing right now at Studio 54. And Oedipus is, if you are a regular subscriber, it is part of your roundabout season ticket package. But because it is not a roundabout production, it is not part of HipTix. I hope that makes sense. But something like Fallen Angels, which is going to be there, I forget if it's winter or spring, but at the American Airlines, that will be there. Archduke, which is off Broadway right now, that's up on HipTix. And so once again, it's a very simple free thing you sign up for, and then it's $30 tickets. I think it's actually like 39 once they get you with some charges. But it's still a great deal. And usually they're towards the front on the side, and they're an excellent theater experience. Manhattan Theater Club 30 under 35, basically the same thing as the other two. This is for Manhattan Theater Club, so you're seeing shows at the Friedman on Broadway or their off-Broadway spaces at City Center. So last year, if you did this, you could have seen Bernadette Peters for $30 basically, which is pretty amazing. Here's Second Stage. Like I was saying, Second Stage is holding pretty firm on this 30 under 30. It's an access code, so you don't have to sign up for anything, but they are very strict with the ID. This is not something you can like sneak your way into. You could bring someone. So once again, like if you want to take your mom to the theater for Mother's Day or something, you could do that. But it is not, there's not really any way to just play the system on this one. Next, we're going to talk about off-Broadway. Um, so these off-Broadway off-Broadway, like I was saying, has become a magnet for celebrity. We're going to talk when I get to my picks about some of the really cool stuff that's happening off-Broadway. Apologies, my voice is starting to give out a bit. But these four companies, the Atlantic Theater Company, the Vineyard, La Mama, and the Signature, all have really great deals and discounts. So the Atlantic Theater Company, which right now has a show featuring Aubrey Plaza, I always reverse that. Um, Apologies, is committed to connecting deeply and authentically with audiences from a broad range of economic backgrounds, ages, ethnicities, and perspectives. They have these great Access 25 tickets for their previews. And so the tickets, as a part of this program for everyone, are $25. They do sell out right away, so you have to keep an eye on them. But Access 25 tickets are sold on a first come, first served basis, beginning approximately 2 weeks prior to the first performance at each Atlantic Theater Company production. And that is just for previews. So if you want to wait for it to be reviewed to see if it's any good, you can't do that. But if you know you really like this playwright, you really like this actor, you really like maybe the set designer or whatever, um, you can pay attention and get these tickets for what's usually a good performance for 25 bucks. And the Atlantic Theater Company, for those who do not know, is the birthplace of recently Kimberly Akimbo started there. If you saw that, that won Best Musical a few years ago. Days of Wine and Roses, which played Broadway last year. We're currently Buena Vista Social Club, which is a huge hit right now. That started here. So sometimes you get to see a Broadway show in this tiny off-Broadway space before it moves uptown to Broadway. The Vineyard Theater, I actually will sign off that I do this membership. It's 10% off tickets to all Vineyard performances. And what they do is they match whatever ticket you buy, they'll match it to the lowest price ticket for that show. And for many cases, that's $35. So sorry. Um, La Mama Experimental Theater Club down in the East Village, the birthplace of the Blue Man Group. This is, in my opinion, the best deal for a theater in New York. So you pay $62 for one membership or $120 for a dual membership. And after you do that, all tickets are $10 for the year. And tickets for La Mama are normally 40, 50, maybe even 60 or 70 bucks. And so this quickly, a $10 ticket, you see two, three shows, and you're good. And those shows do sometimes really go places. So for example, they had a show last year that's kind of this like kind of funky capital A art um, adaptation of Chekhov's The Seagull. And that is transferring now, like literally just announced last week, I want to say, to the public, which I think will be a big hit. And it could even, I would not be surprised at all if from the public, if it moves on to either a larger off-Broadway house or even Broadway. There's a lot of excitement and energy behind that production. And then finally, the Signature Theater. So the Signature Theater has this access program where you can get $40 tickets. And to get those $40 tickets, you have to qualify under here somewhere. So if you work in education, the public sector, work for a not-for-profit, or are a theater employee, if you are military or veteran, if you're a public benefit recipient, or if you are visual, hearing, or physical impairment. And this is once again on an honor system. So basically, you'll sign up for this through the Signature Theater's website. You can also call them and they'll help you. And then for that season, you do have to re-up it every season. You get $40 tickets, which is pretty great. Last year, Brendan Fraser was supposed to do a show here. That would have been 40 bucks. Um, this year, it's a little bit more kind of arty and esoteric, but it's always really high quality work. So now we get into this portion. When I started this presentation, doing these presentations 3 years ago, I did this kind of jokingly of like, these are shows I'm excited about because we used to do this in person in the learning lab. And the second time I did it, people were like, "Oh, where's your picks portion?" Like we enjoy doing that. So I've added the picks back. This is just my taste. I like to remind people that I have two art degrees. I grew up in Philly. I have kind of like funky, edgy taste, but this is what we got. So this first slide is for Broadway. And so Oedipus, as I was saying, at Studio 54, this is a transfer from the West End where it was a huge hit. I will put the asterisk that if you like, or if you don't like, sorry, political art, this is very political in nature. Little Bear Ridge Road, talked about that. This is the Laurie Metcalf play that I highly recommend. Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. This is a kind of classic rom-com, but with only two people, and a Broadway show with two people where they're trying to kind of paint this picture of New York. Just sounds very appealing to me. This one I have not seen yet, but I'm excited to see. This is the one thing on here. I'm probably not going to see this. A lot of people will like it. Ragtime is kind of a modern classic musical based off the novel. For me, I just think the novel is so perfect. When I see the musical, there's a lot that is in the novel they don't get to do in the musical, and it just bothers me. It's a totally a theater nerd problem. Um, but it does have gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous music. If it was just a concert staging, I would totally go. Um, so go even just to hear the music. It is going to be a heavy favorite at the Tonys this year. Apologies. It just extended through June. It is getting pretty rave reviews. Talked about this at the top. Marjorie Prime is maybe what I'm most excited for this fall. Marjorie Prime is kind of a what do they say? Not too distant future play in which a woman who is struggling with I don't know if they ever say if it's dementia or Alzheimer's, but one of those, her memory starting to fail, and kind of AI computer robot is involved in helping this woman maintain her memory. And what I'm super excited about, and I am the president of this woman's fan club, I adore her. June Squibb is about to do 8 shows a week for the run of the show. June Squibb is 96 years young, and she is about to take this on this beast of a Broadway show. If you did not see the film Thelma or this year's Eleanor the Great, highly recommend checking those out. June Squibb is a treasure. Nebraska was maybe her big comeback 10, 15 years ago. Um, she is a gem. And then finally, Liberation, which I talked about, Pulitzer Prize finalist, all about the women's lib movement. Um, this one is a sure thing to get a cheap, amazing ticket on, and you're going to sit through 2.5 hours of top quality drama. And then we're going to move to off-Broadway. I'm going to move through these quicker. Baker's Wife is a kind of cult classic favorite musical. Stephen Schwartz, who did the music for Wicked, this is one of his pieces. It stars Ariana DeBose, who is a viral star and also came up on the New York stage and won the Oscar for Anita and Wicked, or sorry, Anita and West Side Story. She's fantastic, and this is her return to the stage. Archduke at the Palace Theater at Roundabout. Archduke is kind of a toxic masculinity story. It's the story of the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand and kind of these motley crew of young men who follow him. The 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. This is another kind of modern classic. After this left Broadway for a while, every college, every school did this show, and professional theaters kind of left it like they didn't do it because every college and school did it. But now that time has passed and professional theaters are starting to do it again, it is a stacked cast. It is very funny. If you wanted what I was mentioning about kind of that escapist comedic theater, this is for you. Gruesome Playground Injuries. I just saw this last week. It is spectacular. So, so, so good. Cannot recommend this enough. Carrie Young, who the last 3 years has been nominated for Best Actress in a Play. Sorry. Um, and won the last 2 years. She and Nicholas Braun from Succession just do this 90 minutes of like intense but so relatable and so funny human connection stories about how kind of pain and injury can bring people together, which sounds depressing, but it is so good. Seat of Our Pants talked about a little bit, but musical adaptation of Thornton Wilder. And then Initiative, this is the play with the Greenwich connection. It is 5 hours long. So this is something you need to plan for. This is something you need the babysitter, you need to make a full night in the city or full day in the city about it. Um, it is about a group of kids kind of growing up and coming together. There's a big Dungeons and Dragons component, and it stars a homegrown Greenwich talent named Olivia Barisi. And we are very excited to see what comes of it. So some quick tips here. We're wrapping up here, folks. Um, think about the size of the theater, small versus big. Like I was saying, if you are in the Helen Hayes or you are in the Lena Horne, not a bad seat in the house. If you're in a huge theater like the Broadway Theater or the Imperial, those houses are huge, and even if you're getting a deal, the seat might not be great. Remember about preview performances? A lot of shows have better deals in previews. And also on TDF, sometimes you see understudy performances. An example of this right now is Kristen Chenoweth in Queen of Versailles. On days when her understudy, Sherry Renee Scott, goes on, which is once a week, I believe, it is much, much easier and much cheaper to get a ticket. Um, this last section, or I guess there's two sections that are brief left. Broadway at Home, these are some library resources to help augment your experience. So the first thing are these two book lists. If you registered for the program tonight, I will email you links to these. But the first one is Performing Arts DVDs. So if you are not able or not comfortable going into the city, you can actually get Broadway from your couch. And you'll see An American in Paris, Anything Goes, starring Sutton Foster, that last one. Carousel starring Kelly O'Hara, Kinky Boots, which won Best Musical, Memphis, which won Best Musical, a bunch of great ballet and opera, so much. You can get it from the library and then watch it on your couch. The second thing here is fall theater titles. I do this twice a year with fall and spring, and these are just books that connect to the theater season in New York. This is pretty new for the library. We started this last year. Every Westport Country Playhouse show, they send us a handful of passes that you can come pick up at the library at the front desk. And for you, when you get that pass, you can get four tickets at a rate of $10 each. So their next show is a Sherlock Christmas Carol. That's in December. They just had an importance of being earnest, and that is a great deal for really good theater right here in Fairfield County. And then this is the last bit now, I promise. If you're home for the holidays, I wanted to give you a couple quick things. So, Greenwich Library has museum passes, so you can stop by the library and get these passes that usually give you free, if not heavily discounted, admission into some top-notch museums. This is just scratching the surface, but MoMA, the Met, the Guggenheim, the Frick Collection, the Intrepid, the Bruce, the list goes on. This is a great free resource. And then finally, some music that's going to be in the area. Sun Ra Orchestra, jazz legends. If you're into jazz music, it doesn't get much better than this. Are going to be at TVI in Queens, December 27th as part of a Kwanzaa run. Susanna Hoff will be at Ridgefield Playhouse on 12/20. You may remember her from the Bangles, but her solo work is equally as amazing. Big Daddy Kane will be at City Winery on January 10th. Hip hop legend and icon who has influenced so many. Not for radio, if there's any music nerds here, one of the kind of the buzziest bands of the last 5 years is the Marias. Not for radio is the front woman of the Marias side project, and she's doing two nights at King's Theater in Brooklyn. And then finally, pop powerhouse Halsey is doing two nights at Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan. So in conclusion, planning a trip to Broadway or New York can be intimidating, but once you learn the tricks, it can be doable. Do your homework, watch the grosses, and feel free to stop by and see me on desk if you have any questions, or you can totally ask for my card at the desk, and I will get back to you if I can. So now, thank you for your patience going through all that. I'm going to open up to questions. Think I see a bunch already in here. Let's see. So, someone has asked, sorry, I tuned in late. Any special discounts for seniors on certain performances? For seniors, the best thing I always recommend is TDF. Um, you're gonna get great tickets for great shows for anywhere from 30 to 40 bu or 30 to 60 bucks. So TDF is what I recommend for that. And also this is gonna go on YouTube. Probably about Wednesday would be my guess. This will be up on YouTube if you want to go back and listen to anything. Um, Someone else also recommends Active CT in Ridgefield. They are also great. I definitely recommend them as well. Um, but so the TDSF stuff, I would recommend going back and just watching once this goes up on YouTube. Basically, you'll just sign up. Eventually, they'll ask you for proof, and what you'll do is submit. If you're depends on how you qualify, basically. But let's say you're a retiree, you'll just submit proof of your benefits that you get, and that's how they give you access to those tickets. So the Intrepid Pass, there's a question here. Run the USS Intrepid Pass by me, thanks. The Intrepid Pass, you pick it up at the at the lending desk. And I'm honestly off the top of my head, I don't know how many free admissions you get, but you do get quite a few admissions. Someone's asking anything of value at SUNY Purchase Theater. To be honest, I don't have experience with the SUNY Purchase Theater. So I can't really speak to that, unfortunately. I will say for most theaters, if you go to their tickets page, there'll be something like access or discount tickets, and it might tell you a senior rate or a public servant rate or something like that. I think that's all the questions in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions, or you can feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm gonna be here for another couple of minutes, and you can feel free to ask a question, or you can log off. And like I said, this will be up on YouTube shortly after, well, not shortly, but in a day or two after the presentation. And I thank you all so much for being here tonight. Someone has commented that Wilton brings in jazz performers. Yeah, and a lot of libraries do. We have our big series in the Berkeley, but even if you just look at Byram, they bring in stuff at least once a month. There's definitely stuff out there. This talk is focused very much so on Broadway and theater in the immediate area, but there's so much out there. Someone's asking the Rocket. Sorry, someone's asking about the Rockettes. That was on TDF. So the Rockettes, it's the thing with those tickets are that it's not going to be the peak performances. So if you wanted to see the Rockettes on like December 22nd, not going to happen. But if you wanted to see the Rockettes on, I don't know, November 24th, then yeah, that might be there. The thing with the Rockettes too is that it's usually not like the primetime performances. Once they get into holiday season, they perform at 3 to 4 times a day at 10 a.m. I think it's 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 7 p.m., and then 10 p.m. So once you have all those performances in there, you're looking mostly at kind of the weekday matinee performances, which works for some people, not for everyone, but definitely just if you sign up for TDF, you'll see what's available. Um, Someone's asking my name. If you were late, my name is Travis Milliman. I am the Performing Arts Librarian here at Greenwich. There's a question about the TKTS booth. The TKTS booth and TDF are actually run by the same organization, the Theater Development Fund. In general, I think TDF is the better deal. And you don't have to wait in line. If you want to see a play and not a musical, it doesn't hurt to check the TKTS booth, but the TDF will give you the same thing for less hassle, in my opinion, if not better. Another person. So yeah, so my name is Travis Milliman. This will be, and I work here at Greenwich Library. This presentation will be on the Greenwich Library's YouTube page. And so just keep an eye on that, and it should be up, I would say, by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, if not like tomorrow sometime. Um, Someone's asking, does TDF let you select your seats? They do not. I will say that's a very good question. You get assigned the seats. If you need accessible seating, I believe there's an email. You just email them and say that you have this need. But other than that, it is random. I can tell you in the probably hundreds of times I have used TDF. I think I've had bad seats twice. So you usually get very good seats with TDF. There's a question about the Metropolitan Opera. That is on TDF literally right now, and it is on there a lot. So I would say if you are an opera fan and really um, want to go see the opera, that is 100% the way to go through TDF. Let's see. Any specific ideas on Broadway theater? Once this goes up, you can go and see my picks again. I will say for this kind of holiday season, the two shows I'm really excited about are Oedipus and Marjorie Prime. If you're more of a musical person, Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York is the other one that I think could be quite special. Someone's asked to go over the Westport Playhouse deal again. So that is literally, it is brand new. We have had it for I think like less than 6 months at this point. Basically a week or two before shows start. We don't even know exactly when they come. They arrive here at the welcome desk, or sorry, at the lending desk. And for what you want to do is call, see if we have them, and then you stop by, you get the pass, and then for the pass, you get, I believe it's four tickets at $10 per pass. So it's a really great deal. And the amount that we get, I believe, is dependent on how well the show is selling. So some shows we get more, some shows we get less. There's a question, can you get TKTS online now? You can't get TKTS per se. It's just a hair different. It's just run by the same organization. TDF is what you can get online. And that is, like I said, they are all run by the same thing. TDF is just anyone can go to TKTS. TDF you have to qualify for in that pink square I was showing. And it's pretty much everyone qualifies for it. Really, the only way you probably can't squeeze yourself in to qualify for it is if you're like a 50-year-old executive making a six-figure salary. But like that's really the only limitation I would say. Um, Question about ragtime tickets. Ragtime just extended. So they were going to close in January and now they are extending well into June. So yeah, if you got blocked out of ragtime tickets initially, look into June and there probably are cheaper options there. Any tips on parking deals on or around Broadway? So I take the Metro North in always. I don't think it's worth parking. Um, if you do want to park, what I would say is Upper West Side between Lincoln Center and Harlem, in that stretch there, you can usually find okay-ish deals. In my opinion, I just don't understand why you would put yourself through that stress when the Metro North is so easy. Um, but that's just my personal opinion. Um, What's the best option for buying 8 tickets around the holidays? It's going to be TDF, 100%. So with TDF, you can buy up to 9 tickets and sometimes more if the show is really struggling, honestly. So a great show like Liberation, which I will warn you does have some nudity in it, but it's kind of as tasteful as you can get, I will say, with nudity. Um, but that's going to be your best bet. So I would say go through TDF and you will be able to get 8 tickets for certain shows for sure. It might be weekdays. So with the holidays, it does get slightly harder. And I would say those weekend shows are kind of tricky. Sundays might be on there. You'll almost never see Saturdays, unfortunately, unless the show is really struggling. Um, but definitely look there if you need, I would say, more than 3 or 4 tickets. That's your best bet. Right, and that's all the questions in the chat. So like I said, I'll stick around for a few more minutes, but then I'm gonna log off. And thank you all so much for coming. And watch the Greenwich Library YouTube channel, and that's where you'll see this come up in tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday. So thanks so much, everyone.